Kirby Smart's defense will be facing some of the top quarterbacks in the country for this upcoming 2024 season. But how many are good enough to beat the Dogs? That's what I'm going to talk about in today's video, because I do think that there are several quarterbacks who, if they bring their A game, are good enough to beat Georgia with their arm. I'm going to talk about them in just a second, because as we've talked about for a while, if you're going to beat Georgia, you have to have excellent quarterback play, right? You have to be a really good quarterback to make the big throws on time, be consistent, be accurate, and make big throws on 3rd and 4th down if you want to beat Georgia over 4 quarters, all right? It takes excellent quarterback play, and some of these guys have that ability, but we're going to break it down right now. So let's jump into it, and let's start with week 1. And I will go ahead and say it. I do not think that Klubnik is good enough to beat Georgia with his arm. I'm not saying that Clemson cannot beat Georgia. I think they got a chance. But if Georgia loses to Clemson in Atlanta, it's going to be because it's a low-scoring game. The Tigers' defense, which is very good, plays outstanding, right? Maybe they score a touchdown of their own off an interception or a forced fumble. I do think they're going to have some key plays on special teams go in their favor. And I do think that they are going to have some success on the ground. Klubnik is, I guess, a good quarterback. He's mobile enough. Occasionally he can make a decent throw. But this guy is not good enough to put the team on his back and beat Georgia with his arm. That's not going to happen. He is not that good of a quarterback to lead the Tiger offense through the air enough times to beat Georgia. I don't believe it. If Clemson does beat Georgia again, it's going to be for other factors. It's not because Klubnik went out there and balled out and beat Georgia with his arm. I do not believe he is good enough to make that happen. So game 1, week 1 against the Tigers, I don't think Klubnik is good enough to beat Georgia. Week 2 is a nobody. Week 3, Brock Vandergriff and the Kentucky Wildcats. Listen, I like Brock Vandergriff. I always have. I saw him play as much as anyone in high school. He's a big kid who can really run. He's not super accurate, but he's got enough arm talent to beat other teams. Georgia knows his weaknesses, right? As much as I like Brock Vandergriff, and I think he'll have a better season than people think, I don't think Brock Vandergriff is good enough to lead Kentucky to a win over Georgia. I can't see it, and that's that. Good player, might be better than people think. He's not good enough to beat Georgia. Week 5, Jalen Milroe, Alabama. He's already done it, right? He's already beat Georgia, and it wasn't all because of Jalen Milroe. Now, he did make enough big throws and enough plays with his feet to help lead Alabama beat Georgia, but that was a total team win for the Tide, right? Defense, offense, special teams, the run game. They won the game in the battle of the trenches, right? So Jalen Milroe, who is a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. I still think he's probably a better athlete than he is an actual quarterback. But if he can continue to progress under Kalen DeBoer, who, turned Michael Penix Jr., who was a good quarterback, into a great quarterback, maybe he could do that with Jalen Milroe, but Jalen Milroe's already beat Georgia. So this is an absolute yes. It's not going to be easy to go into Tuscaloosa, even with a new coaching staff, and win that game at night. That's going to be a tough game that Georgia probably has to grind it out, right? But Jalen Milroe is good enough to beat Georgia, and he proved it last year. Week 6, Auburn, Payton Thorne. I'm going to talk about Payton Thorne in a second. But first, before I forget, because I will, I like to rant sometimes and go off script a little bit. But I can't do that. I got to remember, collegebronze.com, get the #1 Georgia Bulldog statue on the market today. Look at this bad boy. You're not going to find it anywhere else on the market. Get yours with a discount. Promo code DAWGPOST, DAWGPOST. Don't miss out on the discount, okay? Get it today so you have it for the college football season when it starts against Clemson. They are going to start selling like crazy. Get yours today so you get it before everyone else, okay? You can order in the description below in this video. That's where the link is. You can read about all the 5-star reviews, and that's where you can order this bad boy right here. And don't forget the discount. That's very important. Don't forget that promo code DAWGPOST, DAWGPOST. Okay, Payton Thorne. Simply put, that's not the guy. Sorry, Payton. If you're watching this, if this is where you get your Georgia Bulldog team and recruiting information from, I apologize. Not really, but you're not good enough, okay? You can move, right? You can make plays with your feet. But you're going to need a lot of help. You're going to have to play perfect and Georgia play their absolute worst. If you're going to go into Athens in that crowd, that environment, and beat Georgia, it's not going to happen, right? At least not with Payton Thorne. who threw for 16 touchdowns and 10 interceptions last year. Is that right? Are my notes correct? The guy, he doesn't have the arm talent. He's not good enough at the quarterback position to beat Georgia. That's not happening. Sorry, Payton. Sorry, Auburn fans out there. I don't mean to trigger you. I'm just speaking facts. There's not a single soul out there who thinks Payton Thorne is going to beat Georgia in Athens. Not going to happen. Sorry, bud. Week 7, Mississippi State. I don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Michael Van Buren, the freshman quarterback. I don't know. Neither one of them are good enough to beat Georgia. Okay, let's just call it like it is. So nobody on that roster. Week 8, Quinn Ewers. He is good enough to beat Georgia. I'm expecting a lot of Quinn Ewers because this kid out of high school was up there with Trevor Lawrence. I think he may have been ranked higher than Trevor Lawrence on that little scale that the other outlets make, right? He was a generation, that's what they said, a generational type of quarterback. He's not a bust. He did lead them to the playoffs last year. But if he doesn't lead Texas to at least one playoff win, right? Not just getting into the 12-team playoff. They should be. They need to win at least one game. If they get into the playoff and lose the first game they play, I'm calling bust. Calling bust on the kid. He was supposed to be a lot better than this. And I don't think we've seen him be the type of guy that people expected him to be, or the same guy that people thought he would be. He did throw for just under 3,500 yards last year, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, about 69% completion percentage. Beat Alabama on the road, right? He gets a lot of credit for that. He deserves it. That's a big deal and something a lot of quarterbacks haven't been able to do, right? That was impressive. But he can improve on throws 20-plus yards down the field. He hit some of those throws against Alabama, and he needed to. But overall, he's not super accurate on throws 20 yards down the field. He's going to have to hit a lot more of those this year. He is good enough, right? He's got the talent. The arm talent is absolutely there. This is year 4 in college football for him, right? He was at Ohio State, Texas. Last year was year 3. This year is year 4, right? Unless someone, I'm going off the top of the dome. So if I'm wrong, someone let me know in the comment section. But he is good enough to beat Georgia. He's got weapons. He's playing at home, right? That's going to help him. He's got to get it done. But I've got high expectations for him because of the kid that everyone told me about out of high school. If he doesn't take them deep into the playoffs, you're going to have to start talking about bust or not, right? But the expectations were crazy high. He's good enough to do it, though. Week 9, Florida, Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz was better than I thought he would be. Threw for just under 3,000 yards last year, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, right? He's a veteran now. That kid's got some experience under his belt, takes care of the football. He's not going to torch teams through the air with his arm, but he's going to take care of the football. Is he good enough to beat Georgia? I don't think so. Will he get better? He can. He's got a tough schedule, man. I don't think Florida's as bad as people think they are. But the schedule's just brutal. They're going to have several losses, and they're going to fight just to be 500. It doesn't mean they're a terrible team. They're just not good enough to handle that schedule. I think they'll be a better team than they were last year, but you look at the schedule, and it might not show in their record. He's not good enough to beat Georgia, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did step up, start to play a little bit better than he did last year, and beat some teams that people may not expect him to beat. Is he good enough to beat Georgia and Jacksonville? I don't think so. I'm saying no. Jaxson Dart, Ole Miss, good quarterback, top 10 quarterback in the country, maybe top 5. He is good enough to beat Georgia, right? Just from a talent perspective, but if you know me, you know I love Lane Kiffin. They're playing that game in Oxford. He's another kind of older kid. I think he's 21, turns 22 this season. I might have that wrong there, but he's got a lot of games under his belt. Threw for just under 3,400 yards last year, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Made some key throws against Georgia. And I remember some of those throws, I said, okay, this kid might be tough to deal with next year. He's got weapons all over the place. He's got a better offensive line. And again, another year in that system under Lane Kiffin. I think he could have a big year. They could beat Georgia. And I think he is a good enough quarterback to make enough throws to beat Georgia in Oxford. So I'm going to say yes. But yeah, I'm going to say yes. Tennessee, Nico. I'm not going to pronounce the last name. I don't know it fully yet, but I'm a big believer in this kid. I think Tennessee's got a quarterback that could end up being better than Hendon Hooker. This kid has outstanding arm talent. He can run. He's good enough to beat Georgia. Next year, I don't think he's leading this Tennessee team into Athens and winning that game. So this year, I'm going to say no, but I think the kid's really good. I think he's going to be an NFL starter one day. I think he's going to have a really nice year this year and then be a Heisman contender going into the 25 season. That's how much I like him. He's big. He can run. He's got a rocket arm. He was a 5-star, top 5 prospect out of high school for a reason. Really good quarterback. I don't think he's going to be good enough to beat Georgia his first year as a starter with this team in Athens. I don't see it, so I'm going to say no, but in 25, this kid could light it up. But he's a quarterback definitely on the rise who's only going to get better. And then Georgia Tech, you got Haynes King, Brent Key. Georgia Tech head coach said he's the best quarterback in the ACC. Made some plays against Georgia. He can throw, he can run. I don't think he's good enough to beat the Dogs, especially in Athens with that team though. Can he, throw a couple touchdowns, maybe run for another, maybe put up 20-plus points against Georgia's defense? Yeah, I think he's good enough to do that. Is he good enough to make enough big-time throws in key moments if the game is close with that crowd coming after him in that environment? No, I don't think so. Good quarterback. There's no doubt about it. I think the kid is a good quarterback who can, again, make plays with his feet, and he can read defense. He knows where to go with the football. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's good enough to beat Georgia. He ain't that good. And we're going to see around Thanksgiving. But yeah, so several quarterbacks I think are good enough to beat Georgia. Will they do it? That's another question. But just my thoughts on the quarterbacks that Georgia's facing. Maybe not five, a few, I do think have the potential on their best night, if they bring their A game, are good enough to beat Georgia. That's not saying they're going to, but I think they have the potential with help around them. If they play their best game, have a chance to beat Georgia. Thanks for watching. Get your Bulldog today. Again, promo code DAWGPOST, DAWGPOST. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.